So, Kwena.
Okay.
Our theme for the next 4 weeks is part of our sermon series, Back to Basics, looking at our Christian foundations, or at least part of it.
Yeah.
What was your inspiration? What inspired you or drove you towards this particular direction of a Back to Basics series?
Yeah, I think James, really for me, I needed us to begin somewhere as we go into what I believe God was calling us to do. And for me, the best place to start was to sort of a reminder to remind ourselves of what we know about the Christian faith and the value of the Christian faith. And my hope was that in thinking about it or rethinking about the fundamentals of our Christian faith, that somehow it would not only bring a sense of remembrance to those who listen, but that it will also trigger other sorts of memories, because people have been journeying with the Lord for longer than both of us. I mean, we're probably the youngest. So people have been journeying with the Lord for a long period of time. And sometimes in the process of the journey, it's so easy to forget and to lose memory. And so that was the inspiration, that it will ignite a new way of rethinking about our faith, but also that in rethinking about what we believe, it will also trigger other memories. But also, and I think I will be making a mistake if you don't add this, but that also that it will create a new anticipation of faith. That the believer, myself included really, that in reflecting on what we believe as the basics of our Christian faith, that we will anticipate further what God is going to do, and further how we can participate with God in what God is trying to do in the kingdom. So I would say for me that was the inspiration. And as a matter of fact, I think that is the inspiration of the council and the pastoral team at St. Michael's. I wanted to ask you, for the first week, what actually stood out for you?
Well, I think, when I check my notes here, obviously, if we consider what the sermon component of the first week was our relationship with sin and its nature within creation and within ourselves, which obviously it's a heavy topic to have to deal with. But when you consider the other elements of our service, particularly that week's music selection, then that went on to reinforce God's grace and love for us, even in spite of or despite of the sinful nature we have in for ourselves.
Yeah, I think for me, when speaking of music, I think for me what really stood out was it was the first song.
The opening song.
Oh man, it took me back to primary. It took me back to Sunday school. What was that? Jesus loves me.
Yes, I know.
Oh, that for me set the tone, because that was what it was supposed to really be about. To just the simplest information. Before it becomes complicated, the simplest information about our faith. So because you've highlighted the music, I think the music, that first song really made it. I found myself actually.
It's almost as though the theme song of the series as a whole, perhaps, because it just so perfectly encapsulates what the Back to Basics actually is about.
I'll probably ask Garth to
use it
again this week and hopefully next week. But also when what you highlight on, we were trying to talk about the original sin. Talking about the fall, talking about the image of God, and we're trying to talk about, taking us back to creation, and we're trying to do that within one service. And the sermon that was supposed to be about 15 to maybe 20 minutes, it was 25 minutes, and even within that length, we still really could not bring...
It was just actually scratching the surface.
Absolutely,
there.
yeah.
It's the it's too big of a concept to have to try and deal with in 25 minutes. It's a very important thing, but it's too much to try and delve too deep into it. It's down to home groups and Bible studies to actually take that further and have their own discussions so that they, in their own time, can look deeper into each Sunday's theme, rather than just relying solely on the 25 minutes of a sermon and the rest of the service sort of just building into that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And currently what I'm trying to do, and I'm going to need your help in doing this, is to try to create a material, an 8-week material for Bible studies who may want to just use it. And breaking down this into more topics that people can talk about. For instance, what does the image of God mean? What does it mean that we are made in the image of God? That this whole the Imago Dei thing, that you know, and I think that is one of the most important topics to talk about, because it, at the end of the day, it reinforces, and I would use it reinforces the need for us to take care of each other. I mean, I don't like quoting Wakanda from the movie Wakanda, but he said we have to find a way of taking care of each other as if we were one tribe. And the image of God does that. It says that if God has made all of us in the image of God, what is the responsibility placed on us? Not to take care of our own, but to actually perceive each other as a whole. And I think it has the potential, if it is well spoken about, to deal with matters such as sexism, discriminating other people because of their gender, but also racism, but also tribalism. There's so many things that divide us. And the image of God as a concept, I think, has the ability to
actually be that uniting force.
I think so. Much deeper than how that rugby team united. So yeah, that for me, I think, stood out. Anything else for you? I wonder though, and maybe there's a question I could ask you, if you personally were doing such a topic for a young generation, a much younger generation. Our church is trying to find, it's composed of a large number of older people.
Yes.
You know, but if you were to do something similar to this to a young generation, what would you emphasize on?
For this particular one, I think it's still very much the same. I think as you spoke about now, that being made in God's image, yes, we've got the sinful nature that is sort of become part of our nature. It's so ingrained, it's inseparable, but we are still made in God's image. I think especially the younger generation is seeing a lot of the division and stuff that is being created, and is desperately looking for something strong to be a uniting force. And I think this particular one, they've been that made in God's image, therefore also having part of God's nature in a sense within us, being that strong uniting force there that can overcome whatever the world is trying to use to divide us.
Sure. Yeah. And another thing as well, and probably this will be our last point, is that when we talk about sin, we cannot just stop there. I mean, what did you talk about? We talk about how sin moved from being something we do to becoming a nature. Right. And that's sort of the Christian understanding of what sin is that we are born in it, and that it has somehow found its way in the structures of who we are. But I think it would be a mistake to finish off that discussion without actually talking about the solution
to that.
To that. And that's where Christ comes. For me, that's what Christ actually, that's how Christ comes into the picture. And that is why I was trying towards the end to highlight on our reading. I think our reading was, it was Luke chapter, when Simeon, the prophet,
the song of Simeon.
The song of Simeon. Now let your servant go in peace. My eyes have seen the salvation that you have brought. And that is to say, at that moment in his old age, he was saying, yes, we do have a problem. Yes, there are dynamics to how the effect of sin. Yes, maybe there's also the issue of evil, which we'll talk about next week. But God is really in control.
There is a plan. It's not just chaos that's happening.
Yep. And I think for me that also sort of stood out. But also just to make a joke, I think also what stood out for me was trying to, when you're preaching and people are looking, you can always pick up when other people are trying to figure out what exactly I'm saying.
You can see the thought process happening in people's faces.
You can sort of pick it up and because it was a bit longer, couldn't help but notice that somewhere in the 20th minutes, hour 21, heads were just starting to go like this. Oh, please, just finish off. But that for me is just, I think, the funny aspect of it. Anyway, I think for me that sort of for me covers that. I don't know. Do you have any last remarks? I
don't think so. I think we've sort of covered what we needed to scratch the basics there.
Yeah. The rest, I think, can be explored in Bible study.
Yes, and that's the whole purpose of meeting together in smaller groups to actually look at it a bit deeper than what you would get just on a Sunday or in just short discussions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for taking the time. If you have listened to the end, thank you for taking the time to listen, and we just hope that it will be a blessing to you.